Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to be doing an interesting one. We're going to be looking at Dowsey's most recent video titled "The Artist Has More Potential Than Nurse." We're not going to get around the bush here. Let's get straight into the video. Let's see why I disagree with this, and I actually think that the artist has not as much as potential as the nurse does, and why I think the artist will be positioned lower in the tier list than the nurses. And I think why the nurse will remain as the strongest killer. Although the artist will be a very strong pub stomper, as I mentioned in the comment section down below in the video, she will not be very good in competitive. I only have about a month of competitive experience, and today I'm going to be breaking down why Dowsey's wrong. Why in his video, some of the stuff he says is incorrect, and maybe some of the stuff that what he does say I agree with, and why she is going to be not another D tier killer. But before we do get into the video, does really good content, and I actually enjoy his content, and I do watch his videos now and again. But this video really got me rattled, and when I got about halfway into the video, I had to stop watching. Because I have to talk about this, I have to express this, and if Dowsey wants to have a chat about it, I am so down for it. And I think that could be an extremely nice and interesting conversation to have. But maybe this will go flying by, and that will be what will be. So let's get into the content. So at the beginning of the video, he talks about how the title isn't clickbait, why it's honest, and obviously I'm here to talk about why I disagree. The 4 perks he is running is Ruin, Undying, Barbecue, and Tinkerer. You can't see them because of my webcam movement placement, but just because you know, just because so you know that that's the case, and that's the perks he's running. Let's jump into the video.
Here on Gas Heaven. This is my least favorite Auto Haven map, by the way, but playing the artist on this map is so fun because she is so strong. So at the start of the game, you can send crows out to any generator that you think the survivors might have been.
So the first thing to mention is about talking about the position of your crows at the beginning of the game. One of the things to be aware of is when you're running Corrupt, this becomes less valid. The farthest gens from you, which is the gens that the most likely the survivors are going to spawn by, will be Corrupt. In competitive, it's hands down the one perk you always run is Corrupt. It's the best perk because if you don't run it, you will get generous so hard used correctly. In a competitive environment, they will respect your crows at the beginning of the game. Once you've used your crows, or even if you do use your crows, then they will play around that, and they will get on those gens and start pressuring them straight away. Also, not running Corrupt means you can't necessarily force a 3-gen as easily. Your Corrupt sometimes allows you to have a 3 or 4-gen at the beginning of the game, but because of how this is structured, you're not gonna get a 3-gen. So against good survivors, they're gonna really punish you because of this. However, good scouting potential, still gets a tag. Let's see how he follows up.
Spawned on, and if you hit the survivor, you'll get this white swarm on the survivor's head, or you will get killer's instinct if you are very close to hitting a survivor. So immediately off the bat, she's got strange, crazy, like, you know, scouting potential. She can find survivors very quickly, and then once you've swarmed the survivor like this Feng here,
what is the Quinton doing?
And then you can hit them through a wall. Something weird happens there with the server. Maybe she stopped running and the server just didn't realize it, but she dodges that crow, but due to the dodge, we then basic attack her. And then we just follow up with some crow attacks. A lot of people are saying the best way to counter the artist is to hold W in a straight line and try and go from loop to loop without actually using the pallets or windows. If you do that and the artist is holding W...
This is absolutely incorrect. That's what people say, but you haven't demonstrated this at all in this situation. She ran out, she dropped the pallet, ran to a dead zone, zoned herself to a dead zone. She was going to get hit, but she dropped the pallet anyway, so she lost her speed boost. So she didn't get away from you because she had no speed boost. She zoned herself into a dead zone where you could see her the whole time, so you got easy value with your crows. So she basically gave you the easiest down. If she ran towards 2 and 3, which is to the left rather than running to main, she might have been able to block you with the rock. She could have blocked your vision with the jungle gym. She could have run towards Shack. Or if with a speed boost, she didn't just drop the pallet, by the way, some of the best players you played against, and lose all her speed boost, and she just ran when you hit her, she would have probably got behind the cars towards main, and you would have had a harder time seeing her, hitting her, and downing her. She gave you probably the easiest possible down she possibly could have against the artist.
With you, then you'll suffer the same fate as this Feng here. You would just be able to...
The Huntress would have got a down here as well. You're not showing anything unique about the artist getting a down here because the Huntress could have got exactly the same down.
Spam your crows onto them until they eventually go down. Survivors can attempt to dodge these crows, I suppose, but it is not easy.
This is correct.
We're kind of at a stage now because this is a new killer. Survivors are not used to playing versus them yet. Keep in mind, I run...
You could have hit the survivor on the gen, but you missed your power.
Public test build lobbies. I don't play versus randoms on the public test build. I
know you get no
invite
tag.
people into my lobbies, and this group here was the best group I played versus. Out of
Best group, okay.
everyone I play versus in the public test build, everybody seemed to be very experienced in this group, and this is a game...
You're saying a Fang that runs into a dead zone, zones herself, doesn't use a speed boost, drops a pallet after she gets it, is someone that is very experienced. Okay, Dowsey.
After they played like 2 games versus my artist, so they've already understood a little bit about how I'm playing.
Oh yes, I'm going to go farm my teammate.
We're running a basic killer build here. Barbecue, Ruin, Undying.
Just so you know in competitive what the difference would be. What, 240 we're in now, so what is that? We are a minute and a half into the game. 0 gens have popped. The Quentin is going to farm her teammate, going to farm the Fang now. Someone hasn't saved yet. As soon as you went towards that mid, someone would have been ready for the save. It would be pressuring the gens. As soon as you go to pressure a gen, the save would have come through. They're not doing this at all. The Quentin was doing nothing at the beginning of the game. He was standing by where the Fang was. You saw him. So he wasn't running away as soon as the Fang took pressure. So far, we've basically had 2 survivors doing nothing since the beginning of the game. Pretty much so.
Nothing special. However,
we had one Tinkerer proc at what, 90 seconds into the game, when that gen should have already popped.
This basic killer build, which is already relatively strong, that's why it's a meta killer build, is made even stronger by the fact that I can...
This is nice. You should have been able to get the down there. Misplay by you. But that's smart. And you would have been able to get a really free 1-for-1, punishing these poor survivors.
To send a crow to a generator that is 70% progression, I can then hit that survivor, which I get the swarm of crows on their head, and then I know what that survivor is doing because of the swarm of crows on their head. And there's add-ons to make it so that you can actually see the aura of survivors as well when they have the swarm on them. But basically, I can hit the survivor if there's...
This is what the artist is strong at. If you get that down on Fang, which shouldn't probably happen because in a competitive environment, Quentin would have called where you're crowing towards, and the Fang would have avoided it. And then she could have just said crowing towards 2-3, and then the Fang could have walked back towards 1, and she wouldn't have got tagged. But that's a really nice thing. And in a solo queue environment or in a public game environment, that's really huge and very easy to be able to get really good value as the artist. Getting her down there, picking this guy up, going over, looking to tunnel the Fangman out of the game.
They stay on the generator, or if they leave the generator, then I have a chance of hitting the survivor, but Hex Ruin is going to start regressing.
But this is rubbish. Generator. This is rubbish, right? Tinkerer procs, yes, I understand what you're saying. You got 3 aura readings, you put your crows, you send it. But you just work out that you've got Tinkerer the first time it procs. Once you know that, you play around it. You go to pop Tinkerer, you walk away from the gen. Ruin works for like 3 seconds. You get back onto the gen. You get no value from the Ruin. They start pressuring that gen, and so be it. You get no value. Like, you get, what, 3 seconds value of Tinkerer? I mean, your Undying is gone. Your Ruin would probably go relatively soon. I remember your Ruin being in main on this game, so probably not. But that is something to be calling, and the Quinter probably could have called it when he ran through main, if you were a comp team. But again, you just play around it. You play around the Ruin Tinkerer. And they're not. They're not playing around the Tinkerer. That's not, oh, she's being OP. That's just the survivors not respecting the fact you have Tinkerer. That shows lack of experience. It's the same way when you're sitting on a gen and Tinkerer procs, you don't go, okay, well, I'm good now. I can pop this gen. You look around and see where the killer is if you're playing solo queue, because the killer could come out of nowhere. Try and position yourself in a place where you could see the killer.
Which means that I can, in theory, contest 4 survivors at any given time in Dead by
You
Daylight
can't, though.
On this killer.
You can't.
And I'll actually demonstrate that later in this gameplay, just to...
See, dodged.
This killer's map control, because of the crow swarms, is insane. She doesn't have to be at a generator to contest it. A bit like when Freddy was at his peak power, everybody ran this build essentially on Freddy, because as soon as the generator
that was a more appropriate time that the Quentin actually got saved this time. She started pressure. Yeah, the artist started to pressure this gen here, or Dowsey started to pressure this gen here. The save comes through, and now they can either reset, which is probably the worst thing you could possibly do against an artist, because she's just going to put a cross towards hook and try and hit you. But instead, probably run away and reset somewhere else if you're going to reset. If not, just get on the gens. Again, the only one gen has popped off of 2 hook states.
Tinkerer
no gen pressure.
Level, then you teleport into the generator and chase the survivor off of it, and the generator...
Again, you would have had the information of where the artist was running from and where she's running to. You would know she's coming from 9. So the fact that this survivor here...
but Freddy didn't have
nearly zones herself is stupid.
He had snares to slow down some loops. I just downed the Quentin cross map, by the way.
Because they healed on hook against one of the only killer in the game that could have got the down there. They know that can happen, and they heal on hook.
Near the Quentin, I'm like maybe 100 meters away from this Quentin. I just downed him. Now he does have a teammate next to him. He gets picked up. That doesn't matter. Like this is showcasing the potential of this killer. Freddy, he could teleport to a generator and contest it.
By the way, guys, it doesn't show any potential. All it shows is the survivors have no awareness and understanding of how the killer's power works. That's all it shows. They have no awareness of how it works.
But then he had to chase the survivor, and sometimes that was a slow experience. This killer doesn't need to teleport to the generator. They can stay on a survivor that they're chasing. They can even down the survivor at cross range with their cross map power if they're skillful enough to do so. And it's
like saying, oh, you can hit a Huntress Hatcher all the way across the map. Against a good Huntress, against a long snipe, a long hit across the map, you should never get hit by a Huntress thing. If you're being aware and you know how the Huntress power works and you know where you can't get hit, you should never, ever, ever get hit by it. It's the same with the Artist power. It's probably harder to dodge because it's a larger hitbox. But if you've got someone got visuals on the killer, then you should never, ever be being sniped. Never. Because unlike a Huntress where she can turn around and flick and it's on you, with the Artist, she has to prep it, which shows to every survivor that can see her where it's going, then use her power, which has a travel time, and then has to hit the survivor. It just shows that, no, it's not the case in the slightest. Like, it's so much harder to get hit cross-map with the Artist if you've got that information, which you won't have in a solo queue environment, but in a competitive environment or in a Swift environment, you should and will. 100%.
Very little counterplay that the survivors have. If you end up at a loop like this, for example, this loop here, with this...
Yeah, but this is just the ace playing badly. It's the survivors playing badly. What the heck is the Feng Min doing here? You say these are the best survivors, but the Feng Min is literally staying where the ace is going down. Like, come on, Dowsey, can you not see that?
Pallet down. A survivor, in theory, can loop this pallet for a really long time. But we down the ace because he...
Dowsey, you just break the pallet. It's a pallet gym. And if you have anti-loop, then you use your power to counter the loop. It's that simple.
Makes a mistake. We then hit the Quentin with a crow. The Feng is trying to play...
You're saying that these experienced survivors have 2 survivors staying around where you down someone rather than running away.
Aggressively, altruistically, which will...
How does this show that she's good when you're just literally showing 3 survivors doing nothing? That's all you're showing right now. You have 3 survivors doing nothing.
5 for her. But we can focus down the Quentin and basically get him out of this area. A little bit of injure, a bit of hit and run. We can then injure the Feng because she plays inside our flight path. So that's just one shot to injure rather than having to swarm her. And then we're going to down her at this pallet, which even if she vaulted quicker than she did in this instance, we would have still been able to down her because the crows would have basically kept her at the loop, blocked her down. She would have even been able to hold W to get away from it, and she would have gone down eventually anyway. This killer's lethality in close range is very strong. It's something that a lot of people are not...
Let me show you a clip of me playing against a poor artist and how I abuse the fact that she's bad at artist. Because Dowsey's showing you how to counter, how you play and roll a bad survivor team. So I will show you how you counter and roll a bad killer. Okay, so this is me in a game. This is my Twitch, Tree Mini. If you want to go follow and say hello, then go for it. This is the artist coming to chase me now. Nice tag on the gen, really nice tag. Didn't think that was going to hit me, but it did, because the hitboxes are really big, which is what Dowsey said. I'm going to repel. A good artist would probably get a tag on me here, but she doesn't. Okay, now she commits back onto me. She's going to use her power. Now, that was terrible usage of her power. Can't hit me there. Now she doesn't have a power, so I can play this pallet. Of course, it's an unsafe pallet, so I can't really play it. but this artist is playing very badly, so I'm going to be able to get value here. And now now I'm out of line of sight of her. I let her set up her power on the pallet, because as soon as she sets up her pallet, her power up on the pallet, I'm going to W key away, and that's what I do. Break line of sight, W key, similar to what you do against a nurse. Now I just don't walk into the crow path and I can't get hit. I run through shack to try and break line of sight. I don't know why this doesn't hit. This should have hit. I can now run back round. Again, I'm trying to get rid of LOS. She obviously gets a hit here. I can't do anything about that. I kind of zone myself thinking there's a pallet here and there isn't a pallet here. But no, she's got really bad pathing, so I get to the pallet. Okay, that's should have been a hit, definitely. Maybe should have even been a down by now. I'm going to run into the crows so I don't get hit when I use the power. Again, she probably should have got a hit there, but that's fine. I dodge the power. I vault the thing because she's in an animation when she uses her crows, so she can't M1. I run around the pallet again. Again, I mean, she's just not playing very well at all, but I think you'll get my point in a second. I'm going to run around, repel the crows, so I don't get tagged if she hits me through a wall. Don't know why she used the power there. That was very terrible of her. And there, I thought she might double back, but she didn't. So I W key. Now I W key. I put myself in a position where she hits me, that she's zoned behind the pallet. So if she wants to chase me, she's got so much little distance on me. And she has to run around the pallet, chase me, and then commit to me. And I'm so far away that she's going to waste so much time. Say hi to Ollie in my modded chat. He's calling me a cringe stretch rest gamer. But I think you get my point. My point is, the artist isn't weak. Because from this clip, you can clearly tell that the killer has no idea what she's doing. But what I'm trying to prove is you're using evidence of a good, of bad survivors and playing against bad survivors to express how good the artist is. And I am showing you here in a showcase that if you do that the other way around, I'm trying to showcase that the killer is bad. There's no evidence there because the killer isn't playing well. So there's no way to prove that she's actually good. And it's very similar with the killer. You can't say the killer is good and then show evidence of you playing against weak survivors. It doesn't prove anything. What I would recommend you doing if you really want to showcase and prove me wrong is go and play against a competitive team. It doesn't have to be the strongest competitive teams, maybe a mid-tier competitive team, but play against them. It doesn't even have to be a competitive team. Just force competitive survivors in a team together, play them against in the custom game, and show me a game where you 4K them. Okay? Or even get more than 7 states, because 7 states is what you should be getting. 7 states to a 4K at 1 gen left is what you should be getting as nurse. So show me a game where you compete at that level, or get more than that consistently, or at least once, and I'll go fair enough, you're right. But you'll probably get a 4 to 6 stage game against these competitive survivors.
Not liking about this killer, to be fair, I can understand why. Let me just explain the power, because I know I haven't done that yet. I've kind of talked a lot about why this killer's strong, but not necessarily explain their power to those who still might not be getting it. So basically, you have 3 crows by default, and you'll see I placed the crow down. There's
One moment. As you can see, there's only one person on a gen at the moment, because one person just saved, one person was on a hook, one person is obviously down because 2 people are down. So there's been no gen pressure at all, other than this one gen that's been worked on. Again, we're looking at 4 minutes into the gameplay, and they've only popped 2 gens. 4 minutes into the gameplay, and you've only popped 2 gens. And you're saying that these survivors are efficient.
Line on the ground.
Coconut RTS says 5 minutes is a general time to do gens with no gen regression. Of course, that's with no gen regression. But you should be looking at that regardless if he's got gen pressure or not, if you play correctly. Of course, you're doing a very good job of applying pressure to the generators, but my point is that these survivors are still not being efficient at all. You're not pressuring 4 survivors at all. You're pressuring 4 survivors because they're playing badly, because they're standing around, because there's 3 people sitting at one pallet gym. Whatever.
If a survivor is hit within that flight path, that short range, then that will be an injure and down. If the survivor is hit outside of that range, then the crows swarm around the survivor's head, and the next crow storm that hits the survivors will then injure and down.
I swear that's wrong. I swear if you're outside the flight path, you don't get hit, you get killer instinct if you're close. Unless you're saying that as it goes through a wall in that flight path, then you get hit by killer instinct. Okay, gamers? It's not, if you're outside the flight path, you get hit by crows. No. If it's If it's on the straight of that flight path and the flight path ends because of an object, then you get hit by crows. Okay, please, Dowsey, explain the power correctly.
Close range at a pallet loop, you can set up crows to be in pallets. To avoid
Again, they're playing in a dead zone for like the 4th time, and you're saying that these are good survivors. Quentin, if you get hit and you run into a wall, I'm going to be so angry.
Dropping or vaulting the pallet, you can set up the crows at
Nice.
the apex.
Finally,
of the loop,
a survivor that runs away in a straight line.
The loop or the short point of the loop, up to you. And if the survivor decides to loop, they're going to get hit either by the damaging portion of the crow or at least a swarming portion of the crow. One of the two, like this Quentin here. You know, we can set up the storm before we get there. And then I'm waiting for my power to recover here, but I actually just decided to run him down. But even if I didn't do this, I would just set up the crow inside the pallet loop. And if he ran...
Okay, so think about this chase here and think about the chase that the Fang had at the beginning of the game. This chase has been longer, okay? It's by this time in this chase, the Fang probably would have already been hooked. Because he used his M1, because he used the M1 effectively to get distance, he then ran to a loop. If he was smart, he would have known you didn't have the power. And because you don't have the power, he plays the pallet loop. He played the pallet loop badly, so he got hit. Okay? And because he got hit, because he played it badly, he got down. In reality, if you were a good survivor, because you don't have your power, he would have got that. He would have dropped that pallet, and then you get your power up, and then you can play the power. But because of where you are, if you start using your power, you then run to distance, and you run towards six, which is the other side of that truck, and then you get to that loop. Because you're in your power, you're slower. It's like taking the blood orbs as Oni. Yes, you're not insane, and you're slowed for a little bit, but that slow can make a big, big difference. And because of that, you can run away to a different loop. Maybe probably doesn't get very far, but that extra time where he runs away and gets to an runs away, and you walk around and you run to him is another 10 or 15 seconds, and then you have to hook him. That is like what, a 30-second longer chase and time, purely down to the fact that he played correctly around your power. He did not play correctly around your power, so you get an M1. Why would you ever get an M1 against an artist unless you zone really, really well? That was a misplay from the survivor, again, not a play from the artist showing her skill and capabilities.
Ran into the crow. I didn't even have to launch it. Because he was swarmed, if he runs into the crow, he gets injured and downed. The Fang here is a good example. I set up a crow facing the apex, a crow facing...
Again, the Fang is not doing anything but standing around, running around, and you want to show this is showing the potential of the artist. It doesn't show anything, Dowsey. It just doesn't.
Facing the pallet, and because we swarmed her, she gets injured. And I could, in theory, chase her down here, but I'm not doing that. Coming up in this gameplay is the section I was talking about, where you can contest 4 survivors at the same time. So Quentin is the first survivor we're contesting. We're contesting Quentin by hooking, which is a common way to get pressure. You hook a survivor to contest them. Tinkerer procs on this far gen in the corner and in the middle gen at the same time. So I set up a crow at the far gen and the middle gen, and we hit both the ace and the Michaela. So Michaela hops off the generator because she doesn't want to get crowed a second time. You can see she hops off. But ace,
like let's be real. Why would you ever do that as the ace? I know you're trying to get rid of the power. You're trying to get rid of the crow, but you really know that the artist is so close, anyways. Because if you have a brain, you know where she got hooked. Okay, why would you? You would still stack against when they have Ruin, because Ruin is still up. But to be honest, Ruin would have probably been cleansed by now in a competitive environment. No way Ruin would ever stay up this long in a competitive environment or against a good Swift. Because main is one of the most obvious places you check. You always check main and shack. So your round would be gone, and then people can split on gens. The fact, again, that the Fang and the Ace are doubling in the same place where the kill is coming to, the Fang is still hiding there. She hasn't left. She could pre-leave, but she hasn't left. So again, you're pressuring 2 survivors. As you said, you're pressuring 4 survivors because the survivors are playing badly. In reality, you should be pressuring 2 survivors. The survivor on hook, the survivor that's saving. Sorry, 3 survivors. The survivor on hook, the survivor that's going to save, and this survivor here. And the last survivor should be on gens. This is not showcasing the potential of artists. It's showing the potential of bad survivors. That's not even the potential. The weakness of bad survivors. That's all you're showing in this video. That's all you're showcasing.
Ace is too close, and he's going to go down. He did jump into the locker to try and get rid of the crows, but he didn't realize that I would be approaching him because he
didn't realize that you just hooked in the center, and that he could hear your terror release getting louder and louder, but decided to jump in the locker when you were really, really close, when he could have literally seen you if he looked around. Come on, man.
With the Tinkerer, so he didn't hit my terror raiders. And then Feng tries to finish the generator, And because she's trying to finish the generator and we basic attack her, we just set up a crow at the pallet, and now she's dead because she has to either run towards us, which is a basic attack, or towards the pallet, which is a down with the crows.
Again, I don't think I've seen the Fang use her speed boost from the M1 once effectively. If she was smart, she would have been able to make mid. She could have made towards Shack side, but instead she decides to camp the pallet against the anti-loop. Says, when would you ever camp a pallet against a nemesis? You wouldn't. Like,
4 survivors contested at the same time, and one of them is going to go on a hook after that contest, and one of them is going to get moried because we brought a mori just to show off what it looks like. This killer's absolute potential is insane. It's better than Nurse. It's better than Blight.
You haven't showcased any potential.
I can contest
some potential
fairly effectively with really good lethality at short range loops. Very strong, like a Nurse, a Blight, a Spirit. Typically, very strong 1v1ers, right? They can end chases relatively quickly. I think that those killers, maybe Nurse and Blight, especially if you bring Alchemist Ring, probably can down a survivor quicker than the Artist can. But none of them can then send crows and hit survivors across the map with the crows to contest them, can they?
No, they hook in an optimal position, and if the survivor goes down in a wrong place, they protect 1 or 2 gens, and then they can blink and tag people for free. They can camp the hook as Nurse and get free tags by blinking and hitting. Same with Blight. Distance means absolutely nothing. Yes, you can't tag from the other on the hit, but you can get there in a few seconds. You get there, and then you get the hit and the down extremely quickly. Whereas you're not going to down a survivor ever really fast with the Artist from distance. You're never going to get that value. Against good survivors, you're not going to be able to get downs across the map. Not faster than a Blight can rush over there and down people. Not as fast as a Nurse can teleport and down people. Yes, you can cross map potential, but with a little bit of comms and a little bit of sense in the survivors, you're not going to get tags across the map. It's not a reality. It's not going to happen.
And in this instance here, I'm going to basically show why the short range looping versus killer is so hard, because you just set up a crow like this, you push the survivor towards that path, and then you injure them. And then now all I have to do is basic attack the survivor, because I don't actually get slowed down all that much from using my ability. A bit like a Huntress when she throws a hatchet, she doesn't get slowed down, but this killer's 4.6 meters per second, 115. She's not slow like a Huntress is. So
all you have to do is force M1, get that max speed boost, get that max distance, run somewhere else, try and stay out of line of sight so you don't get tagged when she's running across the map. If she uses the power, you can play a pallet because she won't have a power up. Just like if a Huntress uses all the hatchets, you just loop a Huntress like a normal M1 killer. And or like a Bubba, when he just uses his chainsaw, you can play a little bit more risky, force M1s. And then once you get the power back up, you look to try and position yourself where you can LOS and leave the loop while you're setting up. Just like you would with a Nurse, when she has a power up, you try and position yourself so she can't see where you're going, and W key away to get maximum distance. And that way, when she blinks on her first blink, she gets the least information possible. And these survivors aren't playing like that. They're not playing towards your counter. They're going, oh, well, I'm going to set out a loop. And then they get hit. Oh, I'll stay at the loop. Because if I stay at the loop, then I'll get downed really quickly by your anti-loop. There's no smartness here.
Really quickly. And if I didn't mess around trying to use my crows to down her, then she would have been dead quicker than that. And now, because of Tinkerer, I can then send a crow, contest Ace on the generator, force him off the generator, which he's going to do because he respects my crows like you have to versus his killer. But Barbecue and Chili is going to show me his aura, so then I can set up my second crow attack to continue pressure on him. And now he's stuck behind the tire wall, and I can see his aura and the crows, which means I can just hit him down.
That's what she's good at.
And these chases ridiculously quickly. The counterplay for this killer is really low. If your skill as a killer is high, and
I think that's one thing that she is better. And to be honest, if you do get good, that could be a really big thing. It's all about pre-leaving against the Artist and knowing where she puts her crows down, because she does see your aura when she's marked you, so she should be able to hit you through. But at the same time, you pre-leaving, not getting tagged, and then also not having the most predictable pathing possible while you're crowed. I mean, the Ace literally had the most predictable pathing ever through a barbecue aura. If you're not respecting barbecue aura when you're in pubs, then I don't know what you're doing, because that is probably the most common perk in pubs. You know she's got Tinkerer, you know she's got Rune and Dying because of the beginning of the game. What's her last perk going to be? Probably Barbecue. And because it's probably going to be Barbecue, the Ace should be respecting this. He's running in a straight line, allowing Dowsey to get a free hit. He just doubled back there once. He wouldn't have got hit by the mark. He would have had no information on where he was. He could then run literally anywhere. He could play, run to Shack. He could run whatever you do, whatever path you take. He goes the opposite, and he gets so much value. He could run around the edge of cars. When you come round, he W keys past truck towards 4, towards Shack side, or towards the right side of the map. And you have no vision on him, so you can try Crow, line up some Crows and tag him, but then he knows you have no power. And this is the point. This is the point I'm trying to make. You're showcasing bad survivors when you're playing well. That's all you're showing here. That's all you're showing.
Expresses skill massively. Low skill killer players or medium skill killer players are going to 100% use 3 Crows at any single pallet loop that they come to, and they'll probably get injures and downs, and people are going to be frustrated that it's hard to loop an artist, especially one that's not good. And this is going to be 2 survivors hit off their generator.
Just go back towards the beginning of the video, and you can see where I abuse and beat a artist for what, a minute chase. I mean, I got another 2 or 3 clips like that if you want me to show you how you actually counter and beat the artist. And how you can shut down the artist by literally just W keying at the right time when she's out of line of sight, when she's setting up her power. Because leading when they can see you, after you literally just get a hit or after they've lost their speed boost and then they run, they're not gonna get that value.
Generators here.
That's
Quinton and Michaela both hit, and now we're going to send Crows at both Quinton and Michaela to try and get an injure state onto them. In theory, I could hit both of them here. I actually end up hitting Quinton. So he's injured now. He's like 64 meters away. All right, we got a bit of downtime now because I struggled to find the Michaela. At first, I thought this, when watching this back, there's a little like gas pool by the car. I thought there was a blood pool. It's actually just a gas pool. Anyway, I'm getting distracted.
I saw that yesterday.
Like this killer in the short range, the medium-sized loops, even the strong jungle loops, can shut down windows and vaults very easily.
You're not wrong.
And a good survivor will hold the W key like when you play versus a pyramid head.
A good survivor will look to see where you're setting up using and abusing this thing called just stretched res, and then when you're setting up your power, they will use it to get distance. They won't just leave, because if they just preemptively leave, then you tag them, and then when they're running away, they use a line of sight to break it while they're looking at you so they can see where you're putting your Crows down. And then once you use their power, they continue to W key. Once you get your power back up and you start setting it down again, then they will continue. If you don't use your power and you run to the loop, then they will try and make you to force your power in the most unoptimal time. And then they will obviously, if you use your power, they can loop the pallet normally for a few seconds, maybe 1 loop. And if you don't, and you set up your power in many places and shut down the loop, then again they will start to W key. They get hit, they run over the other side of the map, and then again they're looking to abuse the fact that they've got all this distance. Again, you shut down loops quickly, and you if you're smart and you position yourself well, you could probably get really quick hits onto the survivors. But what the survivor can do is the survivor can literally use the W key to waste as much time as possible, and by just getting hit and running and using that effectively, and making you miss a couple of birds, they can have a 30-second chase. A 20-30-second chase. Plus downing them, picking them up, hooking them if they die edge of map, you're looking at 40 seconds, which is 1 gen at least if you're doubling at the beginning of the game. And that's my point, and my proof is yes, you have the ability in the best case scenarios to get fast downs, but against good survivors, you're going to struggle to get really quick downs if they play smartly. Definitely.
To gain distance when a artist player overcommits chase to a single loop. But the better you are at killer, the better you are at recognizing the skill level of the survivor you are playing versus.
I can't. I'm sorry, Dowsey, but I can't. Dowsey. Because if you're saying that these are good survivors, because you're a good killer and you've a lot of time in the game, then maybe you should rethink the statement you just used.
And basically not overcommitting to chases. And whilst you're messing around looking for survivors, you can send Crows at generators, which then allows you to follow up with a secondary.
Did you just say overcommitting to survivors is bad? Because in a competitive environment where all the survivors are extremely well mechanically skilled, who are you going to go for? Oh, he's too good. I'm going to go on another survivor. That is just as good. Let's be.
I can injure them from ridiculous distance through walls.
In pub games, I totally understand what you're saying. I totally understand. And against players that aren't Swiffing, that don't understand the macro, because at the end of the day, she is counted by macro strategy, not by mechanics. Like someone like Demo is counted by basic micro mechanics. Someone like Killer, macro, for anyone who doesn't know, is the larger principles of how your team functions in order to beat a killer. So Hag is all about macro. It's all about how you break her map pressure. Whereas someone like, as I said, Demo or Doctor, that's all mechanical skill. It's all knowing how to counter. And you win by literally looping the killer. With this, it's not. It's about going down in the right places. It's about calling the crows. It's about allowing to get as least possible pressure with her cross-range map capabilities and being able to shut that down. That's what it comes down to. In a pub environment where you're solo queuing or you're not in a team or you're not in a four-man Swift, you don't have that possibilities, and she will be strong, just like Hag is. And that's why Hag is S tier in public games. That's why content creators rate her as an S tier. But in a competitive environment, she will struggle. Against a competent Swift, she will struggle. That's for sure. These aren't good survivors.
Through lots of different things.
There's no evidence to say why the killer's strong and good, has good potential, because you have showcased that there are 3 survivors doing nothing for the majority of this game. That's why only 2 gens have popped.
And now we got the opportunity to chase this Michaela down. You know, Pyramid Head, he's kind of shut down by the fact that he has no map control. He kind of has like an ability to force survivors to roam the map with his cages, and of course he can shut down, you know, Decisive Strike and Borrowed Time using his cages as well. But he can't contest survivors on the opposite side of the map when Tinker procs. This killer can, and has maybe the same, if not higher lethality at any loop that they come to close range. The Nurse's strength, she has relatively good ability to get around the map with her blinks, and she is extremely strong in the 1v1. This killer, extremely strong in the 1v1, maybe not as strong and consistent as Nurse, but still very strong. And they can actually just instantly contest anywhere on the map generators and push people off.
You can't instantly contest. That's the mistake he's made. Instantly contest is incorrect. Instantly contesting would be, you know, they're on that gen, you hit them straight away. That would be instantly contesting. Okay? You can look to contest over about 3 or 4 seconds, of which the person you're chasing, if you're chasing anyone, will know you're trying to contest them. At which case they pre-leave in those 2 seconds that they get. You don't get the tag, and then they get back on that gen. You have no power, and the survivor you're currently chasing, has a free loot and has free pressure. You're literally vouching off the survivors, not respecting your power, not watching what you're doing, not communicating. That's what makes her strong. That's what makes Hag strong. Hag is strong in solo PQ because not everyone knows what all the traps are, what she's trapping, and what she's playing around. That's why she's strong, because survivors run into her power and let her get free hits. And that's exactly the same with this killer. Do you allow the survivors to get free hits? Or the killer to get free hits on the survivors? That's what it comes down to.
Survives for a decent amount of time in the game that you're playing, like this game, for example, then this killer is going to be oppressive because she can constantly contest any of the generators on the map. And I love that Behavior have actually gone for a killer design that does express skill in such a way. Like,
she's very smart.
Feels good when you are good at the game in Dead by Daylight. When you are good at killer, you put that.
This survivor here is one of the best survivors Dowsey has played against.
When you are good at the game in Dead by Daylight, when you are good at killer, you put that time into mastering a killer, you put that time into mastering the killer role, and you're able to express your skill in Dead by Daylight. There are a lot of things in Dead by Daylight that people have frustrations with, that people think are unbalanced. You know, I'm definitely guilty of talking about.
What he's saying here is 100% true. That's why people put hours and hours into Nurse. It's why people put a shit ton of time into someone like Huntress. Huntress is probably one of the most played killers. It's why someone put hours and hours into Billy. because they are very satisfying when you get good at them and you pull off a nice huntress hatch, a nice curve, a nice prediction blink. That's what's satisfying against them, and that's as them, and that's why someone like, I don't know, someone like, I think Deathslinger, I find very boring, because of course it comes down to aim, and that's the part of mechanical skill, but he has no depth. He has, you have put a better time into the power, you run a crosshair script over your screen, and bada 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 bada, you're insane. No, there's no depth there. There's no way of her power becoming deeper and deeper, unlike someone like Huntress or the artist. I totally agree with him in that sense.
About that a lot, right? But in this killer's kit, it never feels like there are any of those bullshit things that you think are bullshit in Dead by Daylight come into play.
There will be.
And when a survivor counters and avoids chases and avoids going down versus you when you're playing the artist, you just put the onus on yourself for messing up. You don't put the onus on the game. It wasn't the game that made you lose. You lost because you messed up with this killer. Like, I love that about this killer. I love that this killer's limitations are my own. And I think that it's really important that behavior actually are starting
The limitations of this killer are down to how good the comms of the players that you're playing against are. The survivors you're playing against are. That's the limitations for this killer. It doesn't get any more complex than that. The good survivor comms, you will get shut down and lose more and get less value than against a team that has bad survivor comms. Because if you know Clock for a map like Gashaven, you know that she's playing on that map, you know where she crows, you know where she's putting her power, she's pressuring, then she will be weak. Because you will not get cross-map tags. It just won't happen.
To create some designs like this. Where do I think they belong on a tier list? I hate doing this, but it's going to get asked. I think that they're a minimum A tier.
Yes,
for what it's worth, I don't necessarily think this killer is better than Nurse or Blight. They have more potential than a Nurse and a Blight because they can do so many things. Like this, for example, scouting exudates and then injuring a survivor from 24 meters away.
If that's what he means by more potential, then I understand what he's saying. I understand, and I think she does have a lot of depth, and I understand that, and maybe that's true. I mean, maybe he is right. As long as he's not saying in the terms of having more potential that he's better than Nurse, I don't think she'll be better than Nurse. She does have more depth, and because of that, it's someone like Hag. She has a lot of potential because of how she uses her kit, but because of how survivors have come up with a macro strategy to beat it, she's very weak. And it'd be interesting how our artist deals with the fact where she can't get cross-hit tags, what she does and how she adapts. I think she will be an A-tier killer. And against survivor comms that are often got good comms, she is definitely a pub stumper, I would say. Unless her kit gets changed after PTB. Of course, we are still in PTB. But yeah, she definitely does have good potential. He's not wrong there.
Can do so many things like this that is just so powerful. But I think that the survivors do have some form of counterplay in them.
100%.
That will allow them to I guess avoid long range crows.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, there's no global sound when a survivor when you launch the crows cross map. You can hear them coming and you can see their aura coming within a certain range, but I don't think there's a global sound. Maybe if behavior added a global sound, this killer would be relatively balanced.
There you go.
Anyway, I just wanted to show this gameplay, and I wanted to talk about all the reasons why I think
GG's,
this killer has so
video.
much potential. I don't think this is a controversial opinion that this killer is strong. I think a lot of content creators and individuals have come to me and said, yeah, this killer is really strong. I haven't heard anyone quite say the controversial fact that they have more potential than the Nurse, Blight, etc. But maybe you can see it with the explanation in the gameplay I just showed you. And I'm sure there's going to be naysayers in the comment section who's like, it's PvP, these guys were trash. Can't please everyone, but I can show you what I'm trying to talk about and use a gameplay from my experience to give you a bit of inkling as to
why did you say that at the end of the video?
Let me know what you think in the comment section below.
You're not wrong.
If you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already.
GG's gamers.
More gameplay coming soon.
I think the last thing for me to say is it's very difficult to showcase potential of a killer when the survivors don't play very well. And when you are showcasing potential of some sort of killer in the future, please try and make it obvious what you mean by potential and do it against survivors that are actually really decent. Because a lot of the stuff you may showcase against bad survivors don't apply when you play against a good killer, or when you play against good survivors. They aren't relevant, and that way, what you're showcasing is not useful for more advanced players. I guess if you're a newer player or you're a player that's a lower MMR, this is useful for showing certain stuff, but don't say stuff like, "Oh, these are some of the best survivors you played against," when they clearly have no idea what they're doing. It doesn't provide accurate representation of actually the artist's potential, and actually instead playing against someone that's actually like a comp team would show you so much more what mistakes survivors are making against the artists at the moment. Again, it's really early days at the artist. I'll be putting out a video probably in the next couple of weeks about what my actual thoughts are on the artist at the moment in time. I'm showing some gameplay of my own. So hopefully you'll hang around and have a look at that. But thank you so much for watching today's video. And if you did enjoy, leave a like, leave a nice comment down below discussing what you think of the artist and what you think, if I'm right, if Dowsey's right, or any things you have that you agree with or disagree with. Just let me know, because I'm generally interested in this discussion. And I hope everyone has a good evening, night, afternoon, whatever it is. And I'll catch you guys later.